I showed this to my colleague and friend sitting next to me, and he just went like this. And I said, "That's how much this meeting has cost us so far, and we're just warming up." That's when I realized this team is incredibly talented, but our personalities are costing us a fortune. Maybe you felt that too. There is a way to understand what's driving your reactions, your blind spots, and the recurring tension on your team. Have you ever sat in a leadership meeting and thought, how can a team this talented still feel this draining and still make progress this slow? You've got smart people, capable people, experienced people, and yet somehow simple conversations become exhausting. One person's perfectionism makes everything feel like correction. Another person keeps rescuing people who need accountability. Another bulldozes the room with blunt opinions. Another avoids hard conversations until they become expensive. And after a while, you start to wonder, is this just what leadership is? In an organization I served, about half the budget went towards salaries. So every time we gathered the whole staff for a meeting, it wasn't cheap. But week after week, the same thing kept happening. A simple agenda item would turn into a long debate. A few strong personalities would stretch a 5-minute conversation into 90 minutes. One day I got curious and did the math. While taking notes on my iPad, I went ahead and I tapped a few numbers, and I got the number, and I showed this to my colleague and friend sitting next to me, and he just went like this. And I said, "That's how much this meeting has cost us so far, and we're just warming up." And that didn't even include all the meetings after the meeting. That's when I realized this team is incredibly talented, but our personalities are costing us a fortune. Maybe you felt that too. Maybe you've even lost good people. Officially, they left for more money or a better opportunity, but you were at the same meetings they were. You saw the exasperation. You saw the defeated look after yet another misunderstanding, another conflict, another moment where two people completely missed each other. And maybe part of you has started to wonder, was it really just the money? You keep saying, it's just stress, just pressure, just a season. But lately that explanation isn't landing the way it used to because the patterns keep repeating. And the truth is, no amount of team training, culture talk, off-sites, or weekly huddles seems to fully deal with what keeps surfacing when the pressure is on. So what do you do with that? Well, I've got some good news. There is a way to understand what's driving your reactions, your blind spots, and the recurring tension on your team. And there is a way to better understand what's driving the people around you so they stop talking past each other, wasting energy and wasting money. That tool is called the Enneagram. Now wait, before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another personality test. I get it. I've sat through enough of those half-day trainings where everything feels interesting in the moment and nobody ever talks about it again. The reason most tools don't stick is because they describe behavior, but they don't explain what's underneath the behavior. They tell you your strengths, your weaknesses, but they don't tell you why certain situations trigger you, why certain people get under your skin, or why pressure brings out reactions you didn't plan. This tool goes deeper. It looks at things like what you tie your identity to and what you're afraid of losing, what your brain reacts to automatically when stress goes up, the kinds of things that trigger fight or flight responses or lead to conflict, misunderstanding, and sometimes turnover that costs a lot more than anyone wants to admit. Most leadership tools give you a description. The Enneagram gives you a map. So let's put this into the real world. As I walk through the 9 types, I want you to picture your team, picture your meetings, picture faces, picture the people you haven't figured out yet. Because in over 20 years of working with people and teams, I've seen this again and again. The moment a leader sees their team through this lens, everything shifts. Type 1, The one who quietly fixes the document after everyone else says it's done, not because they want control, because they can see what's wrong. Type 2, the one who knows how everyone's doing before the meeting even starts, and somehow ends up helping 3 people before helping themselves. Type 3, the one who already has the slide deck finished before the meeting starts and wants to know what success looks like before you're done explaining what the problem is. Type 4, the one who hears the same plan as everyone else, but asks the question nobody else thought to ask. Type 5, the one who's quiet the entire meeting and then says one thing that makes everybody stop talking. Type 6, the one who asks 40 questions before committing. You think they're stalling, but they're actually being loyal. Type 7, the one who throws out every new idea every 6 minutes, who looks physically restless when the meeting drags. Type 8, the one who says what everyone else is thinking before anyone else is willing to say it. And type 9, the one who keeps the meeting calm and somehow gets everyone to agree without anybody feeling pushed. By now, you've probably seen a few faces, maybe even your own. So let's go deeper, one type at a time, only 30 seconds on each, because what's driving these patterns is also what's driving the tension on your team. Type 1, the strict perfectionist. Type 1s want to do things right. They value integrity, responsibility, and high standards. But their blind spot is that high standards can create high tension. If something scores a 98 out of 100, they may focus just as much on that 2% that missed as the 98% that worked. So what the 1 means as, let's make this better, can land as, nothing is ever good enough. On to type 2, the considerate helper. 2s are wired for connection. They care deeply about people. They often create cultures where employees feel supported, encouraged, and valued. But their blind spot is over-helping. Have you ever seen a leader become so supportive that accountability started disappearing? The blind spot here is that trying to help everyone can create exhaustion and weaken accountability. Let's look at type 3, the competitive achiever. Type 3s are driven, productive, and goal-oriented, but their blind spot is tying identity to achievement. There's always another mountain, another target, and underneath that drive, there's often a disguised form of anxiety. If I stop achieving, do I still matter? When worth gets tied to results, the whole culture can start to run on pressure instead of trust. Let's move on to type 4, the intense creative. 4s bring depth, creativity, and original thinking. 4s often know what feels off. That can produce incredible insight, but it can also create emotional weather that teams struggle to navigate. The blind spot here is that emotional depth can sometimes overwhelm clarity, and when clarity drops, execution slows down. Let's take a look at type 5, the quiet specialist. Type 5s value knowledge, analysis, and independence. They often bring remarkable insight to complex problems, but their blind spot is detachment. They protect their time, their energy, and their mental bandwidth very carefully, and teams may interpret that as disinterest. And when communication drops, confusion grows. Time to look at type 6, the loyal skeptic. Type 6 leaders bring something every organization needs: risk awareness. They see what could go wrong before anyone else does, but their blind spot is over-scanning for danger. They're not trying to stop progress. They're trying to protect the mission, but trying to prevent problems can sometimes prevent progress. Let's look at type 7, the enthusiastic visionary. Type 7s bring energy, creativity, optimism, and ideas. They are often incredible at opening doors, launching projects, and inspiring momentum. But their blind spot is avoiding discomfort. Have you ever seen a leader who generated amazing ideas, but the organization struggled to finish what it started? The blind spot here is that staying positive can sometimes keep leaders from staying present to what's difficult. Let's look at type 8, the active controller. Type 8s bring strength, courage, decisiveness, and protection. When things are uncertain, people feel safer when an 8 takes action. But their blind spot is intensity. They can bring fighting energy to moments that didn't require a fight. Power can unintentionally silence people, and when people stop speaking up, leaders lose information they actually need. And last but not least, let's look at type 9, the adaptive peacemaker. Type 9s bring calm, patience, perspective, and stability, but their blind spot is conflict avoidance. 9s may delay hard conversations, hope problems resolve themselves, and put off decisions that really need to be made. Not because they don't care, but because tension feels heavy. Now here's the thing. None of these blind spots make someone a bad leader. They make them a human one. And that's actually what hit me hardest about 7 years ago when I read Liz Wiseman's book, Multipliers. She talks about leaders who unintentionally diminish the people around them, not because they're bad leaders, because they're human. She describes what she calls accidental diminishers, the pace setter, the rapid responder, the perfectionist, the rescuer, the ideas person. And what hit me wasn't just seeing those patterns in other leaders. It was realizing I had done every single one of them with my team at one time or another. I read that list and thought, well, that's unfortunate. I ended up sending an email to my team, apologizing for missing the breadcrumbs they had been dropping for years. To their credit, they were gracious, and we were able to laugh about it, but they also said something I've never forgotten. They were grateful that I could finally see it. And that reinforced something I believe very deeply. Some of the biggest leadership breakthroughs begin when we finally realize, oh, I might actually be part of the problem here. So, what do we do with all of this? The goal is not to get rid of your personality. The goal is to understand it. One of the greatest gifts the Enneagram has given me is compassion for people I would never have understood otherwise. Years before I even knew what the Enneagram was, I was at an off-site team building exercise with the team I was on where we were asked one simple question. Name one childhood experience that shaped who you are today. One person on our finance team was someone I often found difficult to work with. They could be rigid, short, hard to read, and honestly, I didn't understand them. Then it was their turn to answer. They shared that growing up, their parents only showed them love when they followed the rules perfectly or brought home straight A's. Mistakes meant criticism. Rules meant acceptance. And suddenly, their behavior made sense to me. And my frustration turned into compassion almost instantly. Here's the gap most leaders miss. Knowing the types is one thing. Knowing your specific team, why certain meetings keep going sideways, why that one dynamic never seems to resolve, that's something else entirely. And without a real tool, you're still guessing. Guessing is exactly how the same problems keep showing up year after year. But imagine, the next time you walk out of a conversation that went sideways, instead of writing someone off as difficult, you actually understand what's driving them. That's not a soft skill. That's a leadership edge most people never develop. The IEQ 9 assessment doesn't guess. When your whole team takes it, you don't just learn the types. You see the exact dynamics between them, where the friction lives, where the potential is hiding, and what to do about both. See the link in the description to visit my website and explore how the IEQ9 report can make a real difference in your leadership, your team dynamics, and your culture. Your team isn't broken. Their blind spots are just perfectly aimed at each other. And that's fixable once you can see it.